The Southern African Development Community, SADC, convened its 45th summit in Madagascar just this week, or rather last week. And the topic there that they convened there over was advancing industrialization, agriculture, transformation, and energy transition. This is for a resilient SADC. What that means, what has been agreed, what has to be done once everybody has gone back to their respective countries, we will await anxiously. Madagascar President Andry Rajoelina took over the chairmanship of SADC. He was taking over from President of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa. It's customary that one will move to the next. And next on the line, as I understand it, is the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, who will be hosting, or his country will be hosting, the next summit next year, around the same time in August. President Boko spoke at that summit. The first time that he made, or he addressed his colleagues in this very much reputable organization that was formed initially to fight the oppression of fellow African countries in the region. In studio today, of course, is someone who you have come to know as an expert, political analyst, Sonia Gaobolae. She's here to help us understand, basically review what took place in Madagascar over the weekend. Thank you very much for presence here once again, Sonia.
Thank you so much, Rodi. It's always a pleasure to join you and talk about issues of national importance. And of course, in this particular instance, we're talking about the region, our Southern African region, and what has just transpired as our heads of state met to decide on a few matters of our future.
Yes. They met, and they, as I said in the introduction, the theme there was advancing industrialization, agricultural transformation, and energy transition for a resilient SADC.
Yeah.
A resilient SADC that almost everybody in the region is looking up to. Was this the right priority? Is this priority in the region?
Well, yes, I would say so, and I understand the nature of the question insofar as the issue of industrialization, energy transition relative to other issues that we have in the region.
Especially when you look at, let's say, security, the security issue and political and economic developments in the region.
Yes. And the reason why I say that, even in light of those issues, that being the theme, I appreciated it, and I don't necessarily mark it down, even if I consider the other issues, because those were part of the agenda, right? So the heads of state got to appreciate an address from the head of the organ on defense, the issue of the security, various security issues in Lesotho, in the DRC, were talked about to that extent, but also the agenda. Nothing touched on the other issues that are not related to industrialization, to energy. But because those were also talked on, I didn't necessarily then have a problem with the theme, as it were, even in light, of course, like you're saying, other perhaps more pressing issues, if we were to give them a hierarchical order, yes.
Yeah. And what was your impression when it came to an end?
Well, I think
was there anything that was, you could say that this was outstanding discussions, that going forward we can say that we look forward to changes based on this that was discussed and perhaps agreed on?
Well, I think one thing that stood out for me, of course, was the removal of Lesotho from the security agenda for the coming year, in light of the fact that, the SADC is satisfied in terms of the direction that Lesotho is moving towards sustainable security and the resolution of the constitutional matters and the security threats that they had in their domestic politics. So I do think, considering how issues of security threats and instabilities often drag on for a while, a perfect example being the DRC that we'll talk about. I appreciated the fact that we were seeing something which is quite uncommon, where an issue of security is brought to the fore and said, we are now moving past this issue, and not moving past it in terms of giving up, but saying we are satisfied enough to the extent that this situation is closing a resolution, and we have done our bit successfully. So that that in the address by the head of the Troika, I was impressed by that progress that was announced in terms of the situation in Lesotho and how SADC sees their future going forward as promising in that regard. I think that that would be one of the things that stood out.
Okay, let's talk about the influence that the chairman exerts in SADC, in the region, in relation to aspirations. What qualities of leadership can you be confidently say that the new chairman possesses to drive the ambitions to influence developments in the region?
Well, I guess we would be in a better position to say so once we are evaluating his term in retrospect. But I think generally, and this is not to be pessimistic, but the chairmanship role is underpinned by mostly diplomacy, right? So there is not very much that the chairman can do insofar as ensuring the progress of the agreements and the pacts, because even those in their writing, you'll see that a lot of the time it's the summit urged, the summit encouraged, and even the chairmanship only has power to that extent, to urge his colleagues, to encourage his colleagues. And if through any national consideration, a president decides that this mandate of SADC does not deserve priority in their national conversation or priority list, there is not much of beyond diplomacy and of course continuing to encourage and urge. There is really not a lot that you would expect the chairman to do in that regard. So I do appreciate that it's a role that requires diplomacy, and of course there are varying levels of success within diplomacy. So we can only hope that His Excellency the President of Madagascar perhaps is able to register some successes, especially as they relate to some of the agreements that were signed and agreed on. And we know one of the standing issues or the outstanding issues of this year regarding SADC is the treaty to create the SADC Parliamentary Forum. So we hope that since that was signed this year in this term, that's something that we'll be able to see it, him successfully getting it off the ground, such that next year when he hands over to President Ramaphosa, there is something to be said about the progress towards around SADC Parliamentary Treaty.
New chairman, new faces in the region, President Boko, the President of Mozambique, the President of Namibia, and the President of Mauritius. Do you think they will bring any change, they can influence reforms in the organization? Or you think it's, look, it's going to be a matter of collectiveness?
Yes. I think the one thing perhaps they could do is sway the order of issues a certain way. So if you listen to the President of Namibia, Her Excellency Naidamba, she talked about the issue of women and young people, and women and young people as they relate to, peace and security, and of course issues of unemployment. Though if you look at specifically the issue of women in SADC, past the SADC gender protocol, you don't often hear the plight and the agenda around women. I wouldn't say SADC thinks they've achieved everything with the gender protocol, but you do realize that perhaps she's coming in now and she has an opportunity to sort of reorder where women and youth are on the SADC priority list. But of course, like I'm saying, that's at a conversational level. But in terms of the ability to then get specific countries to do something around those issues. If you look at President Boko in his speech, he seems to want the region to prioritize the issue of integration, right? We need to make more speedy progress towards our integration. That's also all good and well, but even then, he may want to give it an influence conversation around it, but he's limited in that he cannot make the individual head of state put it top of their priority.
Influence. You speak of issues. I want to just some points here that I want you to consider and make a comment on. Slow decision making in SADC. Another point, individual countries privileging sovereignty over collectivity. These are the concerns.
Yes.
I want to hear from you whether these new faces can exert any influence, any significant influence to address this.
Well, like I said, I don't want to be pessimistic, but beyond speaking about them, there is not much they can do, because you mentioned a very important issue there, sovereignty. So President Boko, for example, being the president of Botswana, he can make sure that his government puts the issue of economic development, economic integration of Botswana within the region first and foremost, right? He has the ability to make sure that in terms of the Botswana agenda, that is a priority issue, as it seems to be for him. But he does not have any power to make it the same for every country, because, like you mentioned, sovereignty, right? So even the Namibian president can make sure that the plight of women and youth is elevated in the Namibian domestic landscape. But she can only do so much to get Botswana, South Africa to do the same.
Somebody listening to you will say that you are saying that a leader, there's no room for influence. I mean, people can have confidence in you, and you can influence by just sheer confidence and trust in what you say, how you do things, your credibility. Wouldn't you say that, let's say, presidents like former President Mbeki of South Africa, he came up with their part. You can think of Mugabe. Didn't they exert influence that we can be expecting from the new faces?
They did, but the underpinning or underlying sentiment there was there needs to be political will on the side of your counterpart. Right? So in rhetoric, if you appeal enough, that's why I say, there's an element of diplomacy there, and, swaying the people, which we know that politicians are not short of. So you would need that, you still need for your counterparts to be willing to give the political will to advance whatever it is that you are bringing to the table. But without that, there is really not much. But I do like the fact that, SADC seems to be cognizant of global developments. And as things unfold as they are in terms of the shift in the global powers and, the issues pertaining there, SADC seems to more and more be considering the importance of economic integration or regional integration, even in broad. And I think that means that going forward, we will see an increase in political will towards some of these integration measures, which means that when they now balance, going forward, when they start to balance sovereignty versus the region, we will see more and more of them lean on the side of the region as opposed to just giving the national landscape or the sovereignty issue the most leeway at the expense of the region.
Trading balance between member countries, trading balance, and then we are forging ahead with regionalization, integration. This trading balance, shouldn't it be addressed before we pursue regionalization or integration?
Well,
the small nations would be remaining behind forever.
That's true. I do think that the conversation towards economic integration cannot be had in a vacuum. The context, the regional context. For example, the fact that South Africa is the regional hegemon, right? All these other her neighbors, are sort of more or less dependent on her in terms of the economic side of things. That's a large part of the conversation that cannot be left out of the conversation around economic integration. But from how they are talking about it, that seems to be the case. The acknowledgement of South Africa's position and what it means with some of the initiatives that are being put forward. I am happy with the consideration that they seem to be making to the national context. And of course, that's what you would expect, when an individual president is talking at a regional level. We don't expect them to totally forget the national position and, what they're trying to achieve for their specific citizens they preside over.
Indeed. Let's go back to the communique. The summit communique states that the leaders called for accelerated establishment of the SADC Regional Development Fund.
Yes.
There's an independence special purpose vehicle aimed at, they say that aimed at enhancing regional economic resilience.
Yes.
It will support sustainable development and mobilize long-term investment for SADC region.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the regional development
Do we know
fund,
anything about this?
we know that it's not the first time. It's not new to the fore. It's been mentioned throughout the last couple of years as it pertains to SADC. So we hope that it being I don't want to say if I should say being mentioned again or continue to be mentioned.
So maybe they are acknowledging slow because they say accelerated.
Yes, because there hasn't really been much in terms of movement around that for the years that it has been around. So I'm hoping that, like I said, they seem to be aware that we are at a tipping moment in terms of global politics. So I hope then that means that they are recognizing that their treatment of the RDF idea cannot continue as it has been in terms of its slow, seemingly ambiguous, seemingly non-directional way that it has been treated. So that's one of the things, in fact, that I, at the end of the chairmanship of His Excellency Rajoelina, I would want to know the progress made for the RDF. And then when President Ramaphosa takes over, I would also like to know how then his vision for the RDF for his term from 2026 to 2027. That's one of the key issues for us to look at, because it seems it's being reordered in terms of the importance that is given to it, but we can only see with this chairmanship and the next.
Okay, does the communique makes it clear how we will be able to monitor, evaluate Rajoelina's tenure as the chairman?
No.
Is it known? How do we, is it going to be the improvement in delivery of what SADC protocols call for? Is it going to be the acceleration of integration? Is it going to be addressing quickly conflicts, including even issues of migration or challenges that are caused by migration, economic, people seeking better places economically?
Essentially, it's a mixture of all of that. And I think going in, perhaps, and the expectation is that he and every other chairman has the issues of importance that they would like to be seen. One of the important outcomes from this summit or from this year around SADC is the agreement around anti-money laundering. We know that the issue of transnational crime has been a security threat, has been a growing security threat in the SADC region. And, the uptake of that agreement in terms of member states signing and ratifying it is quite low at the moment. It would be interesting the extent to which His Excellency Rajoelina can get other presidents to sign, and not only sign, but ratify and domesticate that agreement. So the communique itself does not make it clear, but considering that we have the background of the issues that prevailed at this year's summit, we are then able to know that these are the issues we can look forward to. Not from the communique, but our understanding of the issues.